Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're plunging into someone who's uh, definitely sparked a lot of conversation, Jordan Peterson. He's a Canadian clinical psychologist, kind of shot from academic circles to global recognition, 12 rules for life and all those public debates.
Contentious debates, for sure.
Exactly. So our mission here is really to unpack the main criticisms against him, but also look at the defenses, the nuances in our source material.
Right.
You might hear labels like misogynist or alt-right thrown around, but it feels like there's a bigger story.
And what's really interesting is how his rise points to maybe a societal hunger for, candid talk on tough issues, unfiltered discourse.
That's a good way to put it.
We'll look at his core ideas, like that huge emphasis on personal responsibility.
Oh, yeah. The set your house in order idea.
Before criticizing the world, exactly. And his whole order and chaos framework, Jungian archetypes, that's all in the mix.
Okay, so order and chaos. Let's dive right in. One big critique area is how he interprets myths. Some say he oversimplifies, makes them all sound kind of the same.
Yeah, that comes up a lot. So what is myth for Peterson? That's key.
Right.
He doesn't see them as like literal history lessons, not at all. He sees them as tools.
Tools for navigating the world.
Exactly. Valid, valuable tools. Forum for action, as one source puts it, or like user manuals for the human condition.
User manuals. I like that. Written in metaphor.
Written in metaphor, precisely. So when he talks about slaying dragons, it's not about actual dragons. It's a universal metaphor, he argues, for confronting chaos. Something every culture deals with. He pulls heavily on Jung here, the dragon, the mother, father, son archetypes.
So the truth isn't scientific fact, but does it work? Is it useful?
That's his claim. Functional utility, practical guidance.
Okay, user manuals. Got it. Now, moving from ancient patterns to something very contemporary and definitely charged, his views on gender.
Yeah.
And Bill C-16 in Canada,
Oh, yeah?
lots of people saw his opposition there as transphobic. What's the story from the sources?
Well, the sources say he stated he'd often use preferred pronouns voluntarily. The line he drew was at compelled speech.
Compelled speech.
Yeah. He argued that forcing specific language was a fundamental hit on free speech. And he sees free speech as, well, the very mechanism society needs to stay organized. Without it, things fall apart, in his view.
And tied into this, there are accusations he essentializes gender roles, right, making them too rigid.
His defense there points to biology. He brings up the big 5 personality traits.
Okay, like agreeableness.
Right. Women generally higher in agreeableness and neuroticism. Men may be more disagreeable, more industrious. He points to that model.
And he uses Scandinavian countries as an example.
He does, yeah. Suggesting that even with legal equality, you see this natural sorting into different fields. He frames that as evidence for inherent differences playing out.
But what about using feminine for chaos and masculine for order in his myth stuff?
He clarifies that symbolic. Rooted in ancient stories, he says. Not a literal statement about, individual men or women today. It's about the archetypal representation in those myths.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. Politics. He famously critiques what he calls postmodern neo-Marxism.
Yes.
Linking it to identity politics.
Yeah.
And this is where the alt-right accusations often come in. How do the sources handle that?
Well, what's clear is he consistently calls himself a classical liberal, or sometimes a traditionalist.
Not alt-right, then.
He explicitly rejects that label and condemns white nationalism quite strongly in the material we looked at. His issue with postmodern neo-Marxism, as he frames it, is a concern about extreme relativism, meaning a worldview that boils down to just victim versus victimizer. He sees that as divisive and problematic.
And his core political message comes back to
individual responsibility, always. Set your house in perfect order before you criticize the world. That's the starting point for him. Pragmatic, ethical, that's where real change begins, in his view.
Right. Okay. One last area. The whole self-help guru thing. And the idea that he's just commercializing his ideas.
Yeah, the commercialization charge. He defends it by stressing the practical usefulness of his advice. Even simple things like stand up straight with your shoulders back. He argues it fills a real need, especially maybe for young men feeling adrift, lacking meaning.
So the public speaking, the books,
Yeah.
it's not just selling something.
He presents it differently.
Yeah.
More like thinking out loud, refining his ideas in public. Thinking on my feet, he says, trying to extend and clarify my knowledge while also communicating. He even frames it as modeling how to learn, how to become wise.
Okay, so a lot to unpack there. What does this all boil down to for you listening? Despite all the controversy, our sources do show these anecdotal accounts. People saying his work genuinely helped them.
Yeah, stories about overcoming addiction, finding purpose, some even see him as a gateway to Christianity. His unique spot seems to be bridging things, academic psychology, ancient myths, current cultural debates, all focused on confronting, as he puts it, the unbearable burden of being voluntarily.
Embracing responsibility to find meaning.
That seems to be the core message.
So Peterson's lasting influence definitely suggests people are looking for frameworks, ways to navigate the chaos, you could say. Which leaves us with a thought for you. In this age of just endless information, shifting truths, how do you tell the difference between an intellectual offering useful guidance maybe and someone pushing an ideology? What stands out to you in his approach? Something to think about.